Tree in the Trail, Chapters 16, 17, and 18. A Kansas Twister. Jed had written no bad storms coming this year. None struck the caravan on the way to Santa Fe. Halfway back, however, it rained rivers and the wagons bogged down in mud. When a playful tornado spun like a top across the plain, the men had time to save most of their animals by chasing them into a ravine. But 5 of the best wagons vanished in that wild blast. Jed said afterward it gave us all a mighty funny feeling to see them big prairie schooners flying off like birds. Years later, Indians found wagon parts scattered across the trackless plain. Their medicine men decided that things had dropped from the sky, and for once, they were right. A sorry-looking train crawled back to the hill, but no tree now stood in the trail. The tornado had split its trunk and thrown it down. "By gum," said Buck, scratching his bearded chin on the edge of his ramrod. "This is the end of her. Now she sure has gone to the happy hunting ground. She ain't good for nothing no more." "Some of her's good for something yet," said Jed. "Her job ain't finished. I need timber for a new ox yoke." "Out of cottonwood?" snorted Buck. "Anybody knows it rots out sudden. Why, the wood busts if you give it a swift look even. And yet you'll use this here piece pie crust for an ox yoke? You're loco sure. That Kansas twister stole all my spare yokes, and I need one bad," explained Jed. "And I suppose you'll ride 100 miles east to Council Grove and fetch me back a stick of good basswood or oak. I thought not, so I'll just use what the good Lord provided and be thankful." Chapter 17. The past comes to light. So here is the ox yoke, and this is what Buck is going to make out of the cottonwood tree. So while the animals grazed and the men hunted fresh meat, Jed Simpson made a cottonwood ox yoke. He hacked out many a good yoke in a few hours, but this took 2 days and a night. There were several reasons for this, which he came upon after cutting a seasoned length. It had begun hewing it down when his axe struck something hard. The blade was badly nicked. You remember what that might be? I think I know. "What in blazes?" roared Jed, carefully chopping around the place. When Buck rode in with an antelope behind his saddle, he found Jed quite excited. "Look, Jed," cried he, pointing a chunk, "an entire curio shop. 2 stone arrowheads there. That's ancient history before Injuns got iron. Here's a sliver of steel, and if that ain't part of a Spanish dagger, then I'm a chipmunk. Where these 3 rings are younger, 3 arrow points of iron. Indians are now trading with the whites. And to finish off, this dark bulge is a lead ball from a French trapper's old-time smoothbore, 100 years old easy. Think of it, Buck, right before our eyes, ancient history coming to light. Things the old tree has swallowed in her past." "Even so," grinned Buck, bowing low, "but there's something lacking. Why not bring your collection up to date?" And still bent over, he swung his rifle under his arm and pulled the trigger. Jeb leaped back, holding both ears and coughing in the cloud of smoke streaming from the rifle barrel. "There," cried Buck. "Now your woodpile carries a bullet of today along with the other curios. A nubbin of lead as old Martha, Queen of Kentucky rifles, ever tossed out." Chapter 18. The Ox Yoke. It's got 2 areas carved out of it where the ox can have their heads and it leans over them. It helps bear the weight. "You hot-headed hop-toad," Judd spurted. "Why shoot this wood? Made a hole almost through it for nothing. Bullet didn't even show." "Peel this bulge on the other side," said Buck calmly. "It'll show." All this gave Jed an idea. He shaped the yoke carefully so that all the curios could be seen. It would be a large yoke. "That's hoss sense," said Buck, really interested. "Leave enough wood on her and she might last to independence." "She'll last," gritted Jed. "If you want to help instead of just hinder, soak up that bull buffalo hide the men brought in." Most of the night Jed worked by firelight. The hunting knife and Spokes shaved made soft hissing sounds. Next morning, Buck was astonished. "By gum," he said, "fanciest stick of timber I ever saw. Fancy enough even for a Spaniard. But no matter how slick you carve her, she's bound to bust. Remember, she's cottonwood to the core." "Oh, don't jabber," ordered Jed. "Shave the hair off that wet hide." When Jed had finished, all the wagon men stood around in wonderment. He'd covered the oak with raw hide stretched tight and nailed it. When it dried, the hide would shrink tighter. Besides this, an iron band and 6 bolts made certain that the cotton wood would never split. Each curio, including Buck's bullet, poked through its own slit in the buffalo skin and was circled with brass studs. The ox bows, seasoned hickory from an old yoke, were painted red on top. The crowning glory was a set of silver bells which sang with any movement of the yoke, so that the Spanish senorita at Santa Fe did give them bells after all, chuckled Buck. But anyhow, this here is the slickest, prettiest yoke ever to start a run out on the trail. And all the men agreed, as sure as shooting was. Tree in the Trail.